Hi everyone, Jane here again. Thank you for joining me on my channel today and welcome. I am having a bit of a play in my Cardi fatbook today. I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do, but I did have an idea that I wanted to be getting out my watercolour paints, which is why I am using this particular sketchbook. This one is really good fun because it's quite thin paper, but it's a really nice low pressure sort of book to work in. So I'm using my Unipin fine liner. I think it was a 0.5, and I sort of drew round a circle. I used a circle stencil, but you could just use anything to draw a circle with, and then just use a ruler to draw in my sun rays. So my initial idea was that I wanted to use nice warm colours and I wanted a nice sunny sort of page. So I'm using my core watercolours from Golden, and these are in the Bowerbird palette. So it's not a ton of paint in each little one, but I thought it was okay for this, and I'm using my quill brush from Arrtx. So I'm laying down some water and starting off with all the sort of reds and pinks. So I will I will list what I have used. I will link some things in the description box, but please do remember that I am in the UK, so any links I do provide will be for generally UK based companies or UK based links. So if you want sort of a supply that's in your area, I would suggest you look more for where you are. I hope that makes sense. It didn't feel like it made much sense. None of my links are affiliated, so I don't earn anything from you clicking through on them. So I've gone with the reds and pinks to start with, and then I have gone into sort of the yellows and golds and a little bit of orange as well, because I wanted to sort of do that real sort of sunny look. Now I could have painted all of like alternate sections, waited for it to dry, and then painted in the next colours, but I decided I wasn't going to do that. So there is a little bit of overlap, a little bit of blending, but I was quite okay with that happening because I knew this was just going to be my first layer of paint. So I put this layer on, and then I'm going into the middle, and for the middle section, I really wanted to use my Quinacridone Gold. It is one of my favourite colours, and it just really sort of shouted sunshine at me. So I added sort of like a little bit more into areas, just trying to make it look a little bit maybe darker around the outside. And then I did leave it to dry. I did blot a little bit of some of the really watery areas up because I thought it was going to take forever. But when it dried down, it does fade quite a bit, and also actually a lot of the messiness had disappeared. I quite liked how it looked once I had let it dry. So I went in then with a second layer. Now this paper is very thin. I think it's 100 GSM. It's a rough paper. It's cotton rag watercolor paper. So it's not the heaviest weight. It's not the most refined, but it did actually take all of the paint and the water quite well. So I am going back over and sort of filling in sort of the bits that are right near to the center of we'll call it the sun. It wasn't really a sun by the end of this piece. And then sort of down one side of the ray. And I tried to make sure, I think I made sure that I did sort of keep it where it should be the same on each one. And then after I've put down a little bit of the more concentrated paint, I take some water and just blend it so that it doesn't look like there's a harsh line. Now for the centre, I wanted to once again try and darken up around the edge of the circle to sort of give it more of a spherical look, I suppose. I'm not sure if that was what was in my head, but thinking about it, I expect that is what would happen. And I also add in a little bit, I do believe, of the orange at some point. That might be now. And just to sort of give it an even darker sort of shadowing almost around the outside. Now the colours, I'm going to try to remember. So for the orangey yellows, it's transparent Pyrrole orange. There is Quinacridone gold. Hansa Yellow Light, something like that. And also Naples Yellow. I was trying to remember that. I had in my head Yellow Ochre, but I knew it wasn't that. Hansa Yellow. No, Naples Yellow. Naples Yellow. And the pinks and reds are Quinacridone Magenta, Alizarin Crimson, and I think Permanent Red. But I will list them, as I say, in the description box so you can know exactly what colours it was that I used. And I do love using the core because they've got this it's a synthetic oxcal. It's Aquazole. It's a special thing for them to make their paints really vibrant, but it also makes them really flow beautifully. And you would have seen that at times when I've added the water first and then the paint. Now I wanted to add some lines. Now I left this bit in because I got my stamp out and it's from Rubber Dance, but it had an awful lot of rubber still around it. Now these are ones that I do believe they came just on the rubber. I mounted them onto cling and then cut them out. So I decided to cut a bit more of the rubber and the cling away just to make them easier to use. And this is a set that is, I think it's called Grungy Borders, and I wanted just to have that zigzaggy line to give it just a little bit of interest, and the black is a nice contrast to the sort of the brightness of the colours. Now the ink I'm using is Versafine Clair, which is waterproof, but it's also a nice sort of juicy ink and gives a lot of fine detail, so it's a really nice one to if you really want something to stand out. It does, if you're on a smoother cardstock, it does take quite a while to dry because it's a pigment ink, but when it's on watercolour I find it does sort of soak in quite nicely and doesn't need heat setting as much. I wanted to do some patterns in my areas and I decided to get out the Arrtx brush acrylic markers, and I have mine divided up into two pots. I have them in the sort of the warmer colours and then I have them in the cooler colours. So it was quite handy because it meant I could just get out one pot, and I mix them up with my Poscas as well. Now I keep them nib down just to make sure that they don't dry out. I haven't used them tons, I have to admit, just because I'm not really a massive coloured acrylic marker user. I use my black and my white and my gold loads, but I don't overly use coloured ones, but I thought it would be nice for a change to add a little bit of coloured acrylic marker on there. So I'm just thinking of different patterns to add as I'm sort of going round onto the different colours and trying to match the colours to the background. Now I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I did think I would like to put a face. I don't often put faces into my projects. Oh, having said that, I think I do quite often. I do often put people, I don't often just put strong faces in. And this is the Dina Wakley collage tissue, and it's from the set called Elements. It's not a very new one, it's been around for a while, but I thought it would be nice for a change, and I like this because it's black and white, and then I can add colour if I want. So I used water to tear it, so I put the water down and then carefully tore. That way you get a sort of feathery edge, which means that it blends better into your background. And I'm using the Distress Collage medium from Ranger, and it's the matte version. So I find with the collage tissue, if you really want it to blend, you do need to make sure you've got a good layer of that collage medium on both the background and on the tissue, and then it does blend really nicely and lets the colours shine through. I decided I did want to add some colour, so I went with the Dina Wakley Scribble sticks because they have been specially designed to work with Dina Wakley products, and they work nicely. Well, they go over the collage medium, whereas some products don't. I think she said before they're sort of like a semi-permanent. They are water reactive, but they do dry to a sort of permanent state. I did get a little bit of blending and bleeding there with some of the colours, and I did have to get my kitchen towel out, but I wasn't going for anything too refined because it's quite a sketchy face, it works really well with just sort of like scribbling on the colour, which sort of goes with the name of the scribble sticks really, doesn't it? So I'm just dipping the scribble stick directly into the water for the most part, because it's the quickest way to get that colour down. And then I do get my paintbrush and just sort of just to blend it out a little bit, and also if I want to add a bit of colour more specifically, then I just do use it with the brush, just taking the colour from the stick. Because it's got that collage medium, it does speed up a little bit, but it eventually does dry quite okay over the top of that. So I'd go for the whole of the face, and I'm sort of extending the hair out a little bit because you could slightly see the outline of the tissue. And then I decided to draw in, well, I say draw, very roughly, to colour in a little bit of a body for her as well. She did need a little bit more going on, so I've gone with my Posca pens here. And this is where I really decided that I didn't like some of the edges of that tissue. So I used the black Posca pen to add in extra hair so I could cover up some of the bits I didn't like. And I also then just used the white pen to add in some highlights. And I also then added in the body as well, so it looks like now she is actually sitting properly on the page rather than being a floating head, which nobody really wants. So finally I am removing the tape, my favourite bit of all, and I wanted a sentiment, and because of the sort of style of the page I went with the Dylusions stickers. These are the bigger back chat, and normally I go for the white writing on the black, but I felt because of the amount of colour in the page, the white actually stands out really nicely. So I've chopped up my sentiment, and I decided that some bits needed chopping up a little bit more because I wanted them to not be totally going over her face. I don't mind it going over a little bit, but not, you know, too much. And then even though they are stickers, I still will get my glue, which is the Cosmic Shimmer, and add that to them as well, just to make sure that they do stick down properly. Now, even though they stand out beautifully with the whiteness, I did still feel that because we've got that blackness with in the lines of the rays of the sun, and we've also got the black from the collage tissue, I wanted a little bit more framing and blackness. So I do go in a moment with my Posca pen and just add a little bit of framing around each of the words, each of the sentiments, strips I should say. Thank you very much for watching today. If you have enjoyed this video, do please give me a thumbs up, it all helps. And if you haven't already subscribed, if you'd like to join me on this crafty journey, I am quite an eclectic crafter, so I do have quite a range, but please, you know, feel free to just watch the videos that suit what you're interested in doing. And until the next time and the next video, bye-bye.